to turn now to Laura Kilcrease, who has the honor of being CEO of Alberta Innovates. Alberta obviously is at the core of many of these discussions. It's not just about Alberta, and we heard from Minister O'Regan at the beginning that Newfoundland has apparently made a net zero commitment today and is also an oil producing province, of course. But tell us a little bit about what the view is from your seat, because Alberta, obviously, there's lots of bitumen there, but there's lots of other possibilities too. There's the scope for geothermal, the scope for solar, there's lots more to be done. So how do you see this whole puzzle going forward?
Thank you, Diana. We in Alberta Innovates are really the innovation engine for the province. And as such, we've worked with many of the people who are on this broadcast today and continue to work with them. I think the whole issue of net zero is going to come from a multitude of innovations that are going to be applied to the market at the same time. It's not going to be any one innovation. It's the collection coming together in a way that makes sense economically, or really to meet our ESG scores and goals in terms of environment and social and government policy. Ultimately, it has to have an economic output that is viable for not just Alberta, but viable very much for Canada as a whole. So today, we've talked about hydrogen, we've talked about the Indigenous funds, we've talked about many different areas, biofuels. We're working all of these, geothermal, carbon capture. In fact, in Alberta, outside of Calgary, we have one of the largest carbon capture plants in the country that we're using for X Prize winners. But today, very briefly, I want to talk to you about bitumen beyond combustion. In other words, I'd like to have you all think about bitumen as a raw material for other materials that would be important. And we believe we can take bitumen today and reduce greenhouse gases by at least 126 megatons per year, just by, instead of burning all of the bitumen, taking the carbon fibers from the bitumen, taking activated carbons from the bitumen, and taking asphalt binders. So let's look at the big one. Big one is carbon fibers. Today, we have an opportunity to take these fibers that have high strength, a great stiffness, a low density, low corrosion rates, and apply them to many of the existing industries as an alternative material, whether that's aircraft or automobiles or other areas. Today, the future market is predicted at $212 billion by 2030 for carbon fibers. And the bitumen we find in Canada is absolutely perfect raw material from which to take those carbon fibers. Second would be the activated carbon. Why is that important? Because it's got very high surface absorption, and we can use this in applications of methane and hydrogen storage that we'll need to undertake, air purification, many other applications. And today, activated carbon is a market that's growing at 13% per year globally. So again, this could be just a mere 15% of our demand from our oil sands could go to produce this activated carbon, 36,000 barrels a day, and this could give us an enormous new product opportunity in the marketplace. And third, the asphalt binders, obviously mainly used for roads today, but asphalt binders are estimated to be about $50 billion annually. You start putting those things together and taking the raw bitumen, and instead of burning it or combusting it, for the making it cleaner by taking the materials out of it, and there are a few other materials, I should say, like vanadium and so forth, we believe we could easily have, in Alberta alone, $84 billion of new markets in new materials that are clean. So I think as we look at this, I'm only bringing BBC up today, bitumen beyond combustion, because we have a wealth of opportunity at this table. But if we look at that and we can save 126 megatons of CO2, and we just still keep burning, as Jeremy has said, some percentage of our bitumen, basically our balance of about 2 million barrels a day, we suddenly have a meaningful market that creates jobs, that meets our ESG scores. And I say this in all honesty, because innovation, as was said earlier, has been at the forefront of what's happened with our oil sands since time immemorial, since AOSTRA, since SAGDs, since the diluents that have been developed, and we've been involved in most of those things. So I'll leave you with the BBC. Really, it's the other BBC, Diana, bitumen beyond combustion, lots of market. And one last point on that is we have the largest single source as raw material in our oil sands that can produce these new materials in North America. This is not an opportunity we should lose in Canada. Thank you for my colleagues here, because I think working together is what's going to be important here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think that BBC has probably a slightly brighter future than another one I know. But I'm interested in the activated carbon. So you're saying that can draw down other gases and be stable as a form of carbon storage?
Yes. Yes, absolutely, Diana. So whether it's methane, hydrogen, it can even actually be used in gold purification, metal extracts, water purifications, air filters for gas masks, a number of other areas that it could be used more in if we could produce more of that activated carbon. And that's a nearer term opportunity for using some of our bitumen for.